Welcome everybody. We're going to get going in a minute here. Thanks everybody for logging in a little bit early. Really exciting topic today, a topic that's near and dear to my heart here. I've been working with PDM for a long time, and today we're focusing on really the core fundamental reason why companies are picking up a PDM system and setting it up in their company, which is really revision control. And it's not just revision control, it's standardized revision control was the title of the webinar. Which is really what it comes down to, is you don't want to just have the option to keep track of revisions. Ideally, you do it the same with everybody at your company, and you have ways to control when it happens and why it happens. So that's really, in a nutshell, what this webinar is all about. If you do have any questions throughout the webinar, feel free to type them in on the right-hand side and in the GoToWebinar section. I'm going to be trying my best to answer some of those questions as we go along. And Scott's going to be taking a lead on the presentation. So to kick it off, we're right on the hour. Might as well get going here. So myself, my name's Eric Van Essen. So I've been with Javelin a long time, and again focused a big part on helping customers select and implement PDM systems. And with me I have.
And I'm Scott Lidgy. I'm the Technical Solutions Team Manager here at Javelin, and I've also been here for a few years, helping customers find the best-in-class solutions for their processes.
All right, so just quickly before we talk specifically on PDM, I wanted to take a step back and just talk a little bit about the Javelin philosophy here. You've probably seen this slide before if you've worked with us in the last year, and really it's just really a way that glues together a lot of the things that we're doing with our customers. And to us, whenever you're considering a change at your organization, no matter how big or how small, there's really four key pillars that we need to be thinking about as a solution provider with you. We need to be planning specifically for your people, understanding what their knowledge is today. If you do have the right people, or if you need help finding the right people, all of those skills we can definitely help out with. We want to make sure we're recommending the right technology. So we try to match up the technology that we have available in the portfolio to solve the specific challenges that you're working on. Process is really fundamental to how the organizations that we see being most successful with our technology is really fundamental to their success. And it's really key to today's presentation as well, is not only how files move from one person to another, but really what happens along the way and how does that work with revision control. And lastly, we need to be integrating with manufacturing. We know that manufacturing is so critical to your success, and really is, at the end of the day, what pays the bills is successfully manufacturing the right item at the right time, and ideally doing it efficiently, so you can you have obviously good profit margins to work along in your organization. So those are the cores to the business and the solutions that we need to be working with. And today is really about using PDM for your process and revision control.
The definition of a revision, you guys can read that for yourselves, but I mean, for all of us, I think we understand it as, in engineering terms, it's typically a release of a version or of a part or a product that you are creating. So, as Eric mentioned earlier, there's a lot of things that happen when a revision happens, and what are those? Typically we are stamping our drawings. We are putting a symbol on our drawing that refers to the revision level we're issuing this at. We're also signing it off by a person that's reviewing it, and possibly dating it as well. Another thing we'd like to do that's kind of difficult in some situations is we want to keep track of the previous revisions. So how do we retain history on what's already been done? As it gets released, this is a great time to give more people access to the information. So we want to be able to grant access and visibility to these files. We want to notify different people to let them know that, hey, there's a new document that's been revised. Make sure you're looking and using the latest version. And finally, a great option would be, at this time, typically we like to publish out other file types, maybe a PDF of the drawing that's meant for a sales department, or others.
So hopefully at this time, those of you out there, the 56% of you that said that you have a good folder file system, the wheels are starting to turn and you're thinking, wait a second, is revision management more than just a folder and file system? And yes, it is. What do you have for us here, Scott?
So we're going to be able to do a lot more with SOLIDWORKS PDM workflow. That's our way to standardize our processes, to automate the generation of these other file types and issuing notifications and so on. And it's a great way to enforce it, to make sure that we follow the same procedure every time. So let's look at all these things we want to do during a revision release. So first thing is, how do we stamp our drawings, set a revision level, and sign it off and date it? Typically it's all done in our title block, but let's automate it through the workflow. So many of you may not have been in this environment. This is actually the admin tool for PDM. This is how we set up the system, but you're going to see today how easy that is to set up and as well change it if your process changes throughout time. So what I've got here is down here in this section here is our workflows, and you can see for today's presentation it's a very simple workflow. We have a work in progress, a waiting for approval, and we eventually want to get to an approved state. So where a lot of the magic happens inside of a workflow is through our transitions. So these are the states that we want to get to, and how do we get from one to the next is through a transition. So I'll just place one that goes from waiting for approval to the approved, and we're going to name this as approve. Keep it simple. First thing you want to do is, give permissions to who's allowed to actually do these approvals. So let's add maybe the manager group in my case, and I'm going to allow them to do an approval. Next thing we want to do is start to create some actions. What's going to happen when we approve it? First thing we want to do is we want to stamp that revision symbol onto our drawings. So what that is setting a variable in the system. So I'm going to say set revision. And then what we're going to do is tell it what variable we're going to fill in. And we're going to use some automation here to say just go grab the next revision on our system. At that time, we also want to grab the approver. So let's add another action. So we're going to set the approver. And again, it's another variable that we're going to set. We're going to set the approved by. And then because we're in this PDM system, there's a lot of information that's available to us, like maybe the initials of the logged in user who's doing the approving. And we'll do one more for the date. So we're going to set approved date.
So the beauty about doing this setup is that you're doing this once on the front end. A lot of our customers actually never end up doing this because we have it part of an out-of-the-box Javelin Standard template that we quite commonly deliver. But we wanted to show you under the hood what's happening because it's really the right way to visualize or really appreciate this automation. And the fact that you do it once and it happens for every single time you do a revision is huge, right? Huge time saver.
Right, and so the last thing we want to do during this process, we want to tell the system that, hey, if we decide to change this again, we need to increment to the next available revision level. So that's it. So let's try this out. So we'll save up our new workflow, and let's go into our vault. So inside the vault here, we've got a bunch of documents. And you'll notice on in my interface here that a few of these documents are waiting for approval already. So we're going to take this drawing, and currently I'm logged in here as Eric. So for the rest of the presentation, I guess I'm Eric and you're Scott. But
oh, this is going to be confusing.
So Eric's like a manager, so he has that ability to do the approvals. So if we right-click on this document and look at the workflow option, there's the new approve that we just created in our workflow. As we do this, he's going to be asked for a comment, so we're just going to say initial release. All right, and then that goes into the system. And if we look at the preview here, we should have probably zoomed into this beforehand, my mistake, but we actually bumped the revision and filled in the title block for me, and has also signed it off as Eric Van Essen, right, and dated that as well. And then again, everybody in the office that has access to the file will start to see that, hey, it's been stamped with an A revision, and it's now an approved document.
So literally in a couple minutes there, we've set up the automation in the background to drive all that title block stuff that a lot of you, although your system is pretty good, it still takes work to go and fill that stuff out. Now it can be done with that one click. What else do you got?
So the next step is we want to grant access or visibility to others in the office now. For example, the manufacturing floor. Right now, if they logged into my system, they would see an empty folder. So we want to set it up so that they can see the release document we just created. We'll also point out the fact that we also have a building up of previous revisions that I could have access to. So back inside the admin tool, what we want to do is make sure that the right people have the access when it is approved. So inside the approved area, we want to make sure that manufacturing has a read-only on the file content. And it's as simple as that. So let's save it up again and try it out. So as Eric, he's going to go in and take a document like this, and you'll notice that it's actually already had a release, so we're going to again re-release it. So change state, approve the document. And we're going to say new lighter design. It's great to put comments into each stage because it's history. It gives it more information that we can now search on or report on when the time arises. So again, it goes through, it's been issued. Again, we stamped that symbol onto it. And let's go see what the manufacturing floor sees. I'm going to log off as Eric. And if we go back in now as Jeremy's on the shop floor. He goes into the system, and any released document, so you can notice that we don't see all the other parts and assemblies that have not been released yet, but he's seeing just those that have a revision level to them. All right? And if we look at the fact that some of these documents have multiple versions of the document, he only is allowed to see the released ones, all right? Not all the different versions that built up while I was working on the file.
Yeah, and the way that we typically sum it up is get the files to the right people at the right time, and that's the way to see it. It's not they don't necessarily need to get access to the work in progress. You want to make sure that there is literally zero room for error for people that should be accessing those files for purchasing or for manufacturing to use the right files. And we literally just did that administration right there. It's not that tricky. It's really straightforward to go and get this stuff set up.
So you can see how Eric, if he was to log back in and go to get version, he gets to see all the different work in progress stages and be able to go back in time as the engineer.
And see the history too. Actually, do you mind showing the history just real quick?
Yeah, sure. So if we want to go back and see what version A looked like, we'll just say go get.
I was thinking just clicking on the history.
Oh, sorry.
There. Just to see, well, just capturing like as it evolves, seeing who changed it, the date and time stamps, and their comments along the way. That's huge. A lot of companies don't have a good way to track this today, or they might have the other documentation, which you could still do here as well. But the idea is that if you're just doing manual folders and file renaming, there's a lot of key information which is lost. And at the end of the day, it's who did what, why does it look the way it does today.
All right, moving on. Another thing we want to do is, we opened up that file so it's viewable by Jeremy in the manufacturing area, but how does he know it's available for him to look at? So let's notify him that it's there and it's ready for him to take a look at and use for the manufacturing process. So again, we'll go back into the admin tool and make another tweak. We're going to change that transition again, and down at the end here you'll see notifications. What we're going to do is say anytime that we have a file inside that folder that's changing and it's going from waiting for approval to an approved state, we want to make sure that a group of people, a certain person, maybe we'll do it that way this time just so we see a little bit of a difference here. Just Jeremy is going to get notified when documents are approved and put in that folder for him.
And it's important to note that individuals can set up their own notifications if desired as well. So you can, if Jeremy decides himself that he wants to be notified if something happens, he can go and set that up. But in my opinion, it's really nice to have notifications as part of a core company process so that you know when the triggers are for other individuals to do their work.
So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to, again, approve that another document as another drawing file. Goes through the process, We're going to say initial release again. But you notice this time we actually have another box open up. This is the notification comment. What do we want to let Jeremy know? So new design ready as a message. So it goes off again. We've automatically incremented, filled out the title block again, signed it off. And let's see what Jeremy sees this time. So we'll log back in here as Jeremy. Did I not save? I don't think I saved my changes. No, I did.
It's possible you went too quick. Sometimes those notifications take a minute to refresh in the database.
Yeah.
But the idea at this point is that you can either set it up as a pop-up that notifications come up, and if you have access to PDM professional licensing, one of the nice benefit is that these same notifications can go straight into your email. So any company that has that licensing would typically do it that way, because then they don't need to be logged in to get that alert.
So this is the message that actually popped up for us. It did take a couple of extra seconds there. But the nice thing is we're not attaching any documents to an email and losing track of who's got the latest again. It's a hyperlink directly into our PDM system, so he knows he's getting the latest and greatest. And once again, if we look back into the folder, it's only the approved files that he's actually seeing right now. So let's go back to the presentation. So one last step is, on approval, we want to create some other document types. In this case, possibly a good reason would be, or a good item to make would be a PDF of the drawing file. Again, maybe it's a salesperson, maybe it's operations needs to see the bill of material for ordering purposes. It could be anything. But again, we want to make sure that it's captured every time on every release of a document. So back in the admin tool, we're going to go back into the approve transition, and we're going to create another action item. So add one, we're going to say create PDF. And in the system, inside PDM, in the admin tool, we already have a task set up that is told to create a file type. In this case, it's a PDF. So I'm going to go say I'd like it to execute a task. And then from my tasks that are set up in my system, you can see some other options like printing, creating other file types for rapid prototyping. We're going to use my convert, which is my PDF generator. Okay, and we hit OK, and we'll save that up one more time. And then let's go test it out. So back in the project folder, we have our last drawing we want to approve. And what we're going to do is, again, Eric's going to approve this document. Comment, again, we'll just say initial release. Initial release. And new version ready. Okay. Off it goes again. So again, the drawing gets stamped. The revision is it's now the document has been approved. And so now if we went out as Jeremy again, he again would get the notification that there's an approved document waiting for him in this folder. And lastly, if we look at the references, and this is another great capability of PDM, is being able to understand, if we go to contains, what does that drawing contain? Well, it refers to an assembly, which refers to this part, and so on. But it also goes in the reverse. So if I go to where used, we can see that that drawing refers to a PDF that was automatically generated for me, and I have it being put into a release drawings folder somewhere else in my vault. So if we browse over to it, that's maybe a folder that's allowed access by maybe the sales department, for example. And again, if we take a peek at that, there's our release drawing that we just sent off, all signed off the way we hoped it would be. And again, I can always go back and forth as well, right? If we go back to, oh, I opened it up there.
Or can you go to the, are you going to go to the contains?
Yeah, back
to
to
perfect.
contains.
Okay.
And we go back to seeing the whole tree structure of that PDF relates to that drawing, which relates to the assembly, and so on down the tree. All right?
Yeah, as you can see, like it's just standardized revision control is so far beyond just moving files around and renaming them. Not only, I mean, if you were to rename and move files around, like one of the nice things, you wouldn't break references, but the whole idea is you don't have to. You're clicking on what you're intending to do. What is the thing that you're trying to do, which is typically sending something for approval. I'm approving it, or I'm reviewing it. You know, you're capturing the tasks that you are tasked to do at your work. And the whole idea is that revision control is automated. Not only is the title blocks automated, but as you can see what Scott's doing there is all the simple things that you would do on a regular basis, like producing PDFs, sending emails, all done in the background, and easy to set up and administer too, from what you saw. So in about 20 minutes there, we literally just set up a new approval process with all the automation that the majority of clients typically set up. So huge.
Yeah, so just to recap, I mean, with SOLIDWORKS PDM, you saw that we can automate all the process of filling out our title blocks. So, I mean, we focused on one drawing. Imagine a full drawing package where you're shipping out maybe 20 different drawings, and that all being done in that one approval process. You know, maintaining the history, so being able to control who can see the history, but more importantly, maintaining that history that we can go back to if we need to. Going back to an as-built state next year when a guy needs a replacement part. It's great to have it all electronically kept in order for us. Notifying people, you know, the other departments in your office, the shop floor. When are those documents ready for them to use? There's no waiting around. You know, people are notified right away. There's no separate email process, or I forgot to tell this person that the documents are waiting for them. Allowing visibility. So again, controlling the rights at the certain stages. So we can control everything from who can see a folder, who can see files in the folder, and files whatever stage in our workflow. And then the last thing we saw today was the publishing of other document types. And today it was focused on a PDF, but that could be other documents like maybe a DXF for the shop floor to actually do the laser cutting with, for example.
There's a questions about the PDF automation. So thanks very much for that question. The question was, to repeat for everybody else, when you're publishing a PDF, where do the files get saved to? And the answer is actually you're completely flexible where you want those PDFs saved. And in fact, it's very common for clients to save the PDF in multiple spots. You know, personally, I'm a big fan of having that PDF in the vault, because then you can take advantage of the references that Scott was showing you. But I'd highly encourage customers to save that PDF outside of the vault in a folder that would be read-only access to everybody in the company, except for if you have a server set up to go and do that computation and save out that PDF. The benefit of doing it that way is partially from a licensing standpoint, but also it's very common for other systems like ERP systems to go and point reliably to those other PDFs. So if you have an ERP system that needs pointers, that's what I'd recommend doing. So my 2 cents is save in both spots.
Yeah, it's very flexible because, I mean, today we saw it go automatically to a specified folder. You can also have it pop up and prompt the user if you want it to be user specific every time. This way I'm just confident knowing that it goes to the right spot every time.
Perfect. So yeah, keep the questions coming here. There's another. Oh right, sorry. Before I go too deep into the questions, I will point out that the link that's up on the screen is the Pdm Survey. So revision control is one aspect and one benefit, or probably multiple benefits from what you saw today of related to PDM. But the right first step to work with you guys, if you do not have a PDM system in place today, or if you have one that you're looking to update to SOLIDWORKS PDM, is fill in the survey. And with the results, what we can do is summarize specifically for your organization where the key benefits would be. So ideally you have multiple people filling it in, and we can use that as a guide to help us focus on your primary goals and make sure we make the right recommendations for licensing if required, or installation and setup as well. I'll actually send that link in the chat as well. I think I can send this to the entire audience. Let's see if I can put that in there and send. So I just sent a link through the chat there if you wanted to click on it directly there and fill it in. It's a great spot to start, and yeah, it'd be amazing if you could share it around with others in your organization as well. Okay. Any other questions? There's a question here about flexibility in revision scheme. So the question is, what are the options for the counters in revisions? The answer there, actually similar to the PDF, it is very flexible. So you can actually set up multiple revision counters and set up schemes that bump the different types of counters. So it's very common for customers to have like major, minor, and it's totally flexible on what those how those counters are, whether they're numeric or alpha or a combination of the two of them. So I feel confident if you share your revision scheme with us, we can help point out how we'd recommend setting up PDM to match it.
Again, we focused those revisions on engineering drawings today, but it could have been a Word document or an Excel file that, again, we want to have a revision scheme set to.
Question here about sending other documents through workflows and doing a revision control over there as well. And absolutely, there's you can literally revision control any document. In fact, you can also, similar to the way we were driving the title block in SOLIDWORKS, you can actually drive the data within Excel or Word as well. So any file that uses custom properties, which includes all the basic Windows files, and there's also a lot of files that don't, but we can still control, such as DWGs and DXFs, those sort of things. So those use blocks and attributes. All of those we can drive that information to, and all the rest of those things that we saw today. There's extremely good capabilities around as well. The one thing actually that sometimes gets requested that should be out in the future as well is even PDFs of some of the Office documents, which I believe is coming in the future. So pretty exciting to see that. So yeah, absolutely around anything. The one thing I'd warn is once you start managing other documents, it's yet another reason that there's a tremendous number of benefits of PDM Professional, not just Pdm Standard, which a lot of our customers have licensing available to them. I highly recommend that if Professional is too big of jump right away to get started with Standard, that's kind of one of the biggest benefits of Pdm Standard, is that it's that you can migrate in the future to Pdm Professional very quickly. But related to the Office documents, one of the big benefits is that you have the add-in for all of Microsoft. So Microsoft, Word and Excel, PowerPoint, they have an add-in to be able to check in and check out as you're working. And you have multiple workflows, so you can manage. You have a workflow specific to your Office documents, and then a bunch of other side benefits as well. So a bunch of thank yous here as well. So you're welcome. It's been definitely a fun webinar, and yeah, we did record this. So if there's, we're gonna actually do a little bit of editing to it because we're trying to do something on our end to make it a little bit easier to watch afterwards. But once we post it, write us an email or look for it on our YouTube channel, and feel free to forward it around to others at your organization or use it as reference. There was a question here about licensing. Do you need a full SOLIDWORKS license for PDM? A lot of what you saw here is all doable with Pdm Standard, which is included with SOLIDWORKS Professional or Premium. So not the basic Standard license, but it's part of the full SOLIDWORKS license, the way using your term there. But there's a couple things you saw today, and we talked about, like the PDF publishing, email notifications, and other opportunities for automation that we touched on. That is limited to Pdm Professional, which is its own separate license. If you have SOLIDWORKS Standard today, it's actually more affordable to go get Pdm Professional licenses than it is to upgrade to. So that's something that should be considered. Okay. And I think that's about it. So once again, thanks everybody for attending.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott, for a great show today, and looking forward to working with you guys in the future.